Meeting with invocation by Henry, followed by flag salute.
In the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. Lord Jesus, we know that you are the Word of life, the Word of truth. We invite you to come to these proceedings today, Lord Jesus. Bring your wisdom and inspire our elected officials. Guide them in making good decisions and business at hand. Lord, remind all of us present that even though we have differing views and different opinions, we're all brothers and sisters. Help us to remember this. Help us to get along with each other. Help us to treat each other with respect. Lord Jesus, we stand in your name and command Satan to be gone from our presence. He's not welcome here. Lastly, Lord Jesus, we humbly thank you for the blessings that you bestow upon us. I offer this prayer in your name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, we want to welcome each and every one of you to our meeting this morning. I will reiterate, this is a special meeting, so there will be limited public comment. The first thing that we have on the agenda this morning is the discussion on the road maintenance agreement with NL Diamond Mist Maintenance. And so I think it would be best if everyone from Kirk and Michael and Diamond Vista Maintenance would introduce themselves, so we all have a name. So whoever here is representing might go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name is Tanner Yost. Michael. I'm Dave Prater, also with Kirk and Michael.
Steve Williams, Area Construction Manager for Greenville.
Jeff Grimmer, Project Manager for now.
Yep. Okay. We thank you for being here with us this morning.
Jeff
Grimmer.
Okay. We are still waiting on our county councilor to be with us, but I think everyone involved knows why we're here this morning. We're going to talk about the road maintenance agreement and some of the issues that have evolved over this summer with some of the damage that has occurred due to storms. And so I think to begin with, we'll be listening to you, whoever's going to be speaking on behalf, and so we'll allow you to go ahead and do that.
Are you speaking to it now? You want it now to speak first?
Yes.
Okay, to begin with, press releases and things that are printed in the press, this is a public forum, actually should be run through our corporate communications office. We're not really at liberty to give interviews and things without going through corporate communications. When we set this meeting, we thought it was an executive meeting between Marion County and Kirk and Michaels. We didn't understand it was a public forum until this morning, until today. But we're willing to discuss the issues, but not the contractual or the financial issues in the public forum. I think that should be, you know, an executive. We feel like we've honored the RMA agreement. We understand that there's been rain issues and things. I spoke with a gentleman yesterday, Mr. Blackburn. He's lived here for 70 years, and he said he's never seen two 200-year flood issues in the same year in the 70 years he's lived in the county. So we understand there's been some difficult situations due to the rain, but we feel like Enel has met our requirements for the RMA going forward. We would like to complete sections of the project and get inspections and see where we stand and go forward.
How many years has NL been in Kansas?
I'd say about 7 or 8 years. We've built other projects in Kansas.
I guess my question to NL is if they understand the Kansas weather. Kansas weather is very different from a lot of other states. If you've operated in New Mexico, if you've operated in Texas, if you've operated in those, you'll find out from meteorologists, Kansas is very different.
Yes, sir, I understand.
And
I was just repeating what the landowner said, that's been here all his life on the project.
And personally, I can tell you, if you call that a 200-year flood, we've had three of them now in less than 100 years. 1926, 1951, and this year. So they would not be considered.
Well, I'm just repeating what.
Yeah, I know everyone has their own opinion.
Yes, sir.
But
We did experience a lot of issues during the construction and after the construction.
we understand
that are not normal.
you had a very wet year to work with.
Yes, sir.
But, you know, I think as from the commission, you know, we want to see some resolution here as to the damage that was more than normal to some of the areas out there in the wind farm that, you know, we had roads with culverts taken out and those kind of things. And, you know, as of this point, none of the roads have been released to the county, not one.
Yes, sir, we agree. That's why we'd like to complete a part of the project and have an inspection. I think the emails back and forth and things, we need to go ahead and have an inspection on the roads and list any issues we have and go forward.
So have the catastrophic issues been taken care of?
I'm not aware of any catastrophic issues.
Well, we had
We had an email from Kirk and Michaels. We addressed the areas from the last email they had on certain situations. We need to have an inspection. We need to have, when we release an area from construction, where we feel like construction's completed, we need to, as the RMA says, we need to have an inspection. We list any issues we still have, and then we
Tanner, can you address?
Yeah, so are you wanting the inspection done now? Because I think the road maintenance, we're gonna do an inspection when construction activities are completed.
We will send a notification. There's some areas we're still working on. We will send a notification that these areas are completed. There's no other further construction, and we would like to get an inspection.
Just, yeah, we don't wanna pigeonhole you guys, because if we look at it and remove it from the list, and you guys would use it technically on the hall facility.
Yes, we have to contact, we have to contact the county, and we have to contact you guys and say, there's no more construction in this area. Right now, we've got approximately one half of the project that's close to being inspected. We think maybe in the next 2 weeks. There's some areas that Kirk and Michaels sent us that we're working on. We feel like some of those areas are caused by the rain and not by construction. But if we see an area that's unsafe for the public, we're making efforts to fix it, because we care about the public and we don't want issues with the roads.
So were those areas addressed that we talked about after that last rain event?
I believe a couple of them were, there's still one that are still outstanding. And we put together kind of a list, keeping kind of a running list of maintenance issues, the date we identified it, and then the date that did get completed, but there are still some items on here, I guess some line items on here that are still needing to be addressed.
And so do you coordinate meeting what is addressed on the list? Or do you have your own list?
Well, we have a construction punch list. It's not associated with his, that we do for normal reclamation. You know, taking out radiuses, bringing the roads back to the original size, that's all part of reclamation. Some of that is affected on his list and some of it isn't. But yes, we have his list. We've been coordinating his list and we've been addressing the issues. There's supposed to rain this weekend. We've got two items we're working on this weekend. If it rains, those will be pushed back, until Monday or Tuesday, but we're addressing the items that we can with the equipment we have on site.
So is there any area that you consider to be completed?
Well, sir, there's a couple of items, like I said, on the west side, between 350, 360, all the way to Falcon. We're almost completed there. But there's some areas, as they send us information, sometimes the information changes if they add it to. If we have another rain event, these ditches and all are not in great.
I understand what that does to your schedule.
Yes, sir. And these ditches and all are not in good shape. These county ditches some of them are not even a ditch. So when you get rain, it's going to get on the road and it's going to cause rutting.
I did have a call from a gentleman late last night from the west side of the project, and he said there's still culvert work to do out there.
Plus, that's on the list. That's two of the things.
Plus, he said there's not been a maintainer almost all summer on the west side.
That's not correct in our roads. Maintainer, we've had constant maintenance blading on these roads throughout the project.
Go ahead, Randy.
Jesse, you was in on the part where we settled agreement between us and Eno, from road maintenance, correct?
Yes.
Is there anybody sitting in this room from Eno that you made that agreement with, sitting in the room today from Eno?
No,
Okay.
it was all trade winds.
It was all trade winds.
Yes.
I'd like to address that a little bit. Neither one of you was here when we made the agreement, road maintenance agreement. You've taken over from somebody else. My personal feelings, what I was told when we made that, was when we give you the roads, your company, or you bought trade winds, or whatever the situation, it was your roads, except for something catastrophic. Bottom line, we ain't had nothing catastrophic. It's been some terrible rains, but nothing above what happens in our country around Marion, Kansas, or Marion County. So, for you to sit here and say some of the things that you're saying, we did not put a road grader, county road grader, on any of your roads. It was your roads.
Correct.
And that's the reason why you're here today, is because they're your roads until we get this agreement signed and get them done, to the best of my understanding.
Sorry, I disagree. That's not how the RME is written, at least how
Okay.
it's been executed. It's been more that as we upgrade the roads and perform construction activities on them, we have to maintain those sections that we disturb and we damage, and then we'll as right now what's happening is as our contractors' vehicles are going around, they're being followed by blades, and we're constantly maintaining. Our understanding of the RMA is that if there's damage caused to the roads that are caused by not construction activities, so that would be weather. Those would not fall within the RMA in terms of the repair and maintenance clauses. So there are provisions with the RMA that allow Marion County to perform work on the roads. So it's not written in a way, at least in our understanding, that we own the roads, and Marion County has, at its own discretion, can go in and perform road maintenance.
I believe we was told to keep our equipment off the roads. And that was what was understood when this project started. So now we have a difference of understanding, and that's why we're here today, is that our machinery was to stay off of those roads. We cannot let what we saw, one of our grader operators up in there was getting jumped by the public by half of a 15 to 20 foot of a 40-foot culvert being exposed because of road safety. We cannot let that happen, yet it was on your roads for your road maintenance, so your equipment could get on there, whether you would use them or not. So I hope you understand why we know what you just said. We know that there's been a bad year and a half since the project started. We understand that. But that's not our understanding of what we was supposed to do. The roads was yours. So that's my opinion of where we're at today.
Yes, sir. Well, we want to cooperate.
Well,
And like I say, we want to fix these areas for public safety. But
And-
the reason this washout is going to occur, and the reason this washout occurred is because the ditches and existing culverts that the county has in there. And the landowners are telling us this is a normal thing, these roads washing out like this. I drove county roads yesterday that are not in the project, and they're dirt. The RMA says that roads should be returned to the condition or better than they normally were. And you could talk to any landowner out there and to debate that the roads aren't in better condition than when we got here. I think everybody understands that.
Okay, so I want to, first off, address your very first statement that came out of your mouth, is that the road maintenance agreement and finances and so on that you can't discuss. That's been public information for a very long time. So I will dispute that. It is public information. Most everybody in this room knows the entire contract and the amount of finances. Maybe you're not qualified to discuss it, but it is public information.
Ma'am, that's not what I'm
Second.
saying. I'm saying that to negotiate the contract with the RMA itself should be done probably in a
We're not
different
here
form.
we're not here to negotiate the contract, sir.
Okay.
So we're not
Okay.
gonna negotiate a
Understood.
contract. We're here to make sure that you abide by the contract that was already written. Okay? And so you did make a statement that on the last email that you got on the road, that you are going to address it. So I would like you to explain to me why you're not addressing all the other emails previous to that, that has generated this exceedingly long list of roads that have not been addressed to this day. I personally know for a fact for months, some of those roads are on there. And we have contacted you through our attorney, letters. We have contacted you, we've had how many of these meetings? 3, maybe? And we're in the same boat today as we were months ago. And I would also like to say that when you ask Kirk and Michael to do an inspection, that's all outlined right in the road maintenance agreement, how and when that takes place. And the way I'm listening to you now, what I'm seeing on the roads, this is not the time or the place yet. You have a lot of work to do before we get to that point. And that's what I'm expecting you to do, is abide by the contract and do the road maintenance as is signed.
Ma'am, you're talking about legal. I haven't received any.
I'm not talking about legal.
Well, you
I'm not talking about
You said
legal.
you sent legal letters. I don't, that's above my pay grade. I'm not here to discuss anything legal. We
Okay,
don't
I
have legal-
understand that. So
We
you-
don't have legal counsel here.
So you have
So-
admitted then that maybe you're not qualified actually to enter into these discussions, but I'm just simply saying that you have a contract, and I think your gentleman next to you has read it because he's quoting some things that I don't see that are in there, but, and of course my interpretation is entirely different, and we were led to believe entirely different, but I'm simply saying, we've got a problem with roads, and you're dancing all around them with every excuse under the sun, and this is what we want to cut out.
No, ma'am, I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying we've met our requirements, the RMA,
I'm
as we
afraid you
go
did
forward,
not.
and we will continue to.
So just as a clarification, the only document I received from your outside counsel I think that was back in March. I only received one letter. We provided a response, and there was an action list, and I think we did a vast majority of that work. But some of it could have come back because due to weather damage.
Actually, I know which one you're referring to. And I did read that letter from our council, and I did see the list that he had attached to it. And to this day, I can still see that a lot of those roads, some were addressed. I will give credit where credit is due, yes. But there is no excuse for the fact that the majority of those that back then are still not been taken care of. I mean, just not, and the weather thing, I'm sorry, I don't buy it. I understand there was rain, but it wasn't catastrophic. It was not catastrophic rain. So, I mean, I don't even want to hear about the rain.
Well, I'm just repeating what a landowner gave me. In a meeting yesterday, he said for the first time in 70 years, he was worried about his house flooding.
Well,
And
I
he told
think-
his wife it rained from 2 in the morning to 8 p.m. the next evening. 12 inches of rain in 2 days. This is what he's telling me.
Your
And
job
for
is
the
not
first
to
time-
negotiate, excuse me, with the landowners. Your job is to negotiate with Kirk and Michael.
Oh, no,
And the county.
my job is to negotiate with
I thought
landowners.
that was
Anel
even
has
your-
direct landowner agreements directly with the landowner about.
The weather?
No,
county
about
roads?
reclamation. About reclamation. Some of these roads aren't even county roads. We have access roads that are directly on landowners' property. So yes, we do. We have landowner agreements with the landowners.
But they can't discuss the county roads.
They can
And for you to
discuss whatever they
discuss-
want. They're at liberty to discuss.
Well,
I'm
right,
not-
but you can't go and use that against the county, what you're
I'm not
discussing
using
with them.
anything against the county, ma'am. I'm just relaying information that.
So where did our last correspondence land?
It went nowhere. It went nowhere. Mr. Hughes wrote the letter. It was a very forceful letter. They blew us off, quite frankly. There was no follow-up, and so it went down the
I'm
tubes.
just wondering where was it directed to?
It was
There was a
direct-
response, and then we performed the work, and then I never got any additional comment on that list. That wasn't properly addressed. The only lists I have from Kirk and Michael was there was a list of about 10 roads, I think, from a month or two ago, which I provided it was caused by weather damage response. And then I haven't really seen a response since then, other than an email from Tanner to, I think, outside council asking how to get down listed to do it. It's the last I've seen. And then there was 2 more emails about the culvert we just recently discussed, and Old Mill. I think that's the road. And we've instructed our contractors to do that.
May I say one other thing, just one other thing?
Okay.
How long have you worked here in Kansas on this project? How long have you been here?
I was originally working on Diamond Vista December 2018.
Okay. Am I correct that Diamond Vista, or now, I'm sorry, you have a tremendous turnover of supervisors? Is there like number 3 or 4 now in the last, 6-8 months? We have different project managers, so I understand what you're saying, maybe you didn't hear the information, but that doesn't mean the information wasn't out there.
So myself and the senior project manager have always been on the project. But yes, on site, as the main construction activity completed for the installation of the plant, we did ramp down resources, as you guys know. And unfortunately, we've been trying to keep the same people. Unfortunately, there's, restricted construction. I try my best to try to keep the same guys. Like I know we recently put Rusty on because the previous one decided to move to another company. Unfortunately, with construction folks, especially in renewables, it is very difficult to jump from one company to another.
What's the name of the new guy that's coming on, do you know?
We had a temporary gentleman, his name was Rusty Brown, but he was kind of filling in a gap while our current civil supervisor, who just arrived on site yesterday, and we're kind of doing an induction with them. I'm going to provide his information because the transfer is kind of now done internally, and he's going to remain on the project until it's finished.
And he'll be really addressed going forward, he'll be up to date on all this.
Yeah.
It appears to me that we're having a communication failure somewhere along the line. You know, and I don't know what best way to rectify that, but we need to have, you know, some of this stuff can be avoided if we have good communication, evidently, from what I'm hearing. But, what are your thoughts, Brad?
Well, what I'd envisioned, and I appreciate these guys coming today, was that since Bryce and I talked about it, and I knew Tanner was going to be here, is if there's still an ongoing punch list that's fairly current, if we could at least share that, go through it, and at least find out, yeah, these are not in dispute, we're taking care of that, and they know what we're still dealing with, and here are some that we weren't aware of, or these are ones that we absolutely don't feel are our responsibility. So we at least get this winnowed down to something manageable. Because right now it just keeps fluctuating and we're kind of in a constant state of change, depending on what's still out there and what hasn't been repaired yet. So that would be my thought, at least in terms of sort of activity today.
Yeah, and, you know, we're working off of 2 lists.
Yeah, and that's why I thought if we could at least,
So
I
how-
assume this
how do
is
you-
probably the one that's
how do
gonna be
you-
longer.
How do you meld those 2 lists together to where it's acceptable for Kirkmichael County folks?
I think we're so close to parts of the project. I think to not do an inspection doesn't make sense. I mean, we can email this back and forth, but I think we need to actually look at the situations and have an inspection and say, okay, this section of the road is good or it's not good, and here's why. And have the contractor, have a mill, have Kirk and Michael's there, we review the sections of roads, because that is part of the ordinance, and determine if there's additional work and what that additional work is. If there's disagreements between Kirk and Michael's and a mill, we need to clear that up.
Yeah, and that's,
We need to decide, okay, guys, you say this needs to be done. We feel like if we've built a road to the specifications that's in the drawings and what it should be, then if there's anything outside of that that we feel like needs to be done, we need to agree or disagree or whatever and figure it out. I think the emails back and forth, and yes, we've had some turnover, but this project and this reclamation, guys, it's not just the roads, it's the collection lines on the farmer's property. All of this has taken a lot of time. When you have a rain, you can't go out there and muck up a farmer's field. I mean, you're there. So then you got equipment on the roads that you normally wouldn't have on the roads at this point in the project. So I think to get out there and look at the roads, do an inspection at Kirk and Michael's, maybe Jesse from the county, and we all take a section of the project, we drive it, we see what the issues are, and we go from there.
I can explain kind of what we've done on some other uniform projects. So we usually keep a maintenance list. And then what we had envisioned was when we do our post-construction inspection, our inspectors pretty much take the pre-construction reports and they pretty much drive the roads and take pictures in the exact same spot. We look at all the structures, and if there's any things that aren't similar, then we come up with that list, and then we fuse it with any outstanding maintenance items, and that's what we call the final acceptance list. But typically we don't start that until all the work's completed. So.
And I think that's where confusion's at.
But
I believe our RMA says once correct me if I'm wrong, Kirk and Michael, but if the project is completed, you will do your post-construction inspection. I think what they've been asking a lot is, can we get some sections done and inspected and then get it back turned over to us? But I believe our RMA has said that the whole project has to be completed before the post-inspection takes place. And I think this is where we're getting so much confusion and mix-up going on.
and I would agree with that. When I went through it, and obviously I'm entering this way at the end, but this one, in terms of the RMA, kind of does it globally in terms of an agreement for acceptance, and didn't contemplate, at least expressly as I would see it, okay, we'll take 1/8 of this project, right, and we're done. And we want to get off of that, and we want it accepted, and we want to move on. That way you cross that off the list. Right now, it's an all or nothing kind of a thing, the way it reads, and that's creating all kinds of issues. So that's why I thought if we could get a global punch list, at least to the point of, okay, this is even pre-acceptance, this is what we're still seeing, and find out, okay, we've got disagreement over what portions of this we feel are our responsibility in terms of this project versus what we really think are county, so everybody hears that and we can air that. That would be helpful in terms of moving this along. Right now, it's just ships passing in the night. In some ways, we're exchanging emails and different things keep coming up, and I just thought it would be useful if we could do something along those lines.
Yeah. Well, I have a list of pretty much the outstanding items, pretty much it's all the ones that haven't been marked as completed.
Is it okay to make copies of that for the board?
Yeah, and I brought 3 copies, but we're share with you guys and give a
Just
copy.
make some more.
Yeah.
So since the email does not seem to be working, is there any way that all 3 of the entities could meet some common ground someplace, you know, I don't know how often you need to do this. That way everybody's sitting face to face, okay, here's the list, where we're at, instead of emails crossing in the night and then it just, if you're like me, you start getting confused when you start getting certain kind of emails. I mean, is that a possibility? Is that a possibility with an L?
Sure, we're gonna have a guy on site.
Is that a possibility with Jesse or someone in the road department? For Bryce?
If I may, the agreement actually says that we're supposed to have meetings to discuss this stuff. And I think that's where the communication breakdown has been. Because I would agree with you, face-to-face goes a long way compared to what we've been doing. We are currently on number 9 inspector for on-site from them, from what we understand. And that in itself has caused, I think, a little bit of a problem also because and you know, I've been in the outside contracting industry a long time. Anytime you change an on-site person, that can cause some problems issues. They just don't have the same information. Working with different people obviously causes some problems. That's just the biggest thing. Communication all the way around. I mean, we've just resorted to this.
In the end, it sounds like that's our biggest issue right now. I don't know how you can address it other than meeting face to face.
We can set up a meeting, but I think bottom line, one of our issues is that returning the roads to the condition as good as or better than they were at the beginning of the project when we started, I think is where maybe what Kirk and Michaels is asking us to do and what we feel like needs to be done, we need to get that straight.
I've heard here today, we're gonna have we know we have a video of the whole roads before.
Right.
And that's what we're gonna go off of when we go back and look
Yes,
at the
sir.
final exam, correct?
Yes, sir.
Do you think that I'm gonna pass that culvert that I've seen pictures of 15 to 20 foot sticking out? You think I'm gonna pass that if I'm them guys? It's still I mean, we just talked about it today. The video says you've gotta have that just like it was or better, just
Yes,
what you
sir.
just said, for that culvert. So that's our problem, that it's not as good or better.
Well, we're addressing those, sir.
I know,
We-
but we cannot forget safety.
Yes, sir.
And I can't let that sit out there too much. So if I send my road and bridge boys out and fix it, we're gonna send you the bill.
I understand that, but as soon as I saw the picture, we gave instructions.
Some
to
of you
fix
did,
that.
I heard
We
you
gave
did.
Not
instructions
all
to
of
fix
them,
that.
not all,
Mhm.
not all of them.
So,
For safety concerns, when we saw
Right.
something like that, we adjusted immediately.
okay, that's a start, because we gotta finish up somewhere. I know you guys are wanting to finish up.
Yes, sir.
We're all wanting to finish up, and as soon as the weather gets that done, but we're just trying to follow the rules that we set a year and a half ago. Is that when it?
March,
March.
April of 2010.
March, yeah.
Yes.
And so we're going off that video, and if it's not as good as that video, I mean, to me, I don't know what else, there's other things involved besides the video. But, so, I just can't agree with you saying that we're gonna let that go. We've got
I'm
to.
not saying we're gonna let it go.
Okay. Okay.
So, and I'd like to also address culverts, since we're on culverts. You had talked about a culvert, I'm thinking you're probably talking about the one at Mountain or someplace. I think some of these road issues that we have as far as washouts, actually you caused them. Because of when you put your roads onto the private property, you have redirected our water. I know for a fact that there are several roads out there that is in fact the case, and to this point has not been addressed. And there will be major dirt work up in the property owner's field to address that and reroute that. And that needs to definitely be done. So, I mean, you need to take ownership of that, and you need to do, and you need to
We're
put in a
working
proper.
directly with the landowners on reclamation.
No, I'm talking about the damage that is gonna cause to the county
Well,
road. I'm talking about you have, since you redirected the water, please understand what I'm saying. Since you redirected the water onto the county road in a different fashion than what we have access to ditches and drainage, you need to do whatever dirt work you need to do, and I don't care how you do it, but that water gets directed back to its proper flow. That's what I'm saying needs to be done. And I know there's more than one place.
Okay.
Okay.
Are you a civil engineer?
No, but I don't think you need to
Okay,
be such a
thank you.
smart aleck, because I'm bringing a
No, I'm just
point out to
asking a
you.
question. Just asking a
Okay, let's
question.
get back. I mean, bottom line, it sounds like we need to communicate the three entities on a regular basis and kind of meld these lists together so that everybody's looking at the same stuff. And so I guess the question that I have for the commission is, can this be done? Can this type of communication start, immediately? So everybody kind of gets on the same page. I think at this point, we're on 3 or 4 different pages.
Mr. Becker, may I please say one other thing? This is an engineer right here. That is a serious problem that I brought up, and I really don't want it to be blown off. When I'm talking about the water being redirected, if we blow that off in our county, in my district, we're gonna pay the price for a long time. So I would like the civil engineers or the engineer to address that, just so you have your answers.
Yeah, well, we've got them sitting right there,
Go ahead, Tanner.
and they see the issues on a daily basis.
I know, but I would like them to address it if you don't mind.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
So I think the main, kind of the main one is the Falcon. I think it's north of that church. And then the turbine is F4. So it is, they put the string road in, and it looks like there are some terraces up there. Well, and we've ran into this issue on a couple other projects, is where they lower the terraces, and now the water, instead of following that terrace and going north, it now comes down that string road to a different point. And it does cause issues on the county roads. So we've had some issues. So David, every time after rain, he goes and has been instructed to look at all the access roads and see what issues are being caused, if they're not draining properly. I think there was a bunch of, yeah, so there's Bison, Indigo, and Falcon. So there are 3 main ones that kind of stood out to us.
This is where you've cut a road to the windmills.
Yes,
And
yeah.
it went through a terrace
Right.
and lowered the terrace, the way I understand.
Right. So,
And then that causes more water than what should.
Changes the direction of the water.
Yeah.
So the one that Tanner just discussed, we reviewed the other day, and we looked at the property and, yeah, saw exactly what you guys are discussing. And we've already reached out to our contractor that some additional earthwork has to be done there. I think that's the only one I have right now on the list I've received, so.
Yeah.
if I
But
can
you
get
do
the rest-
recognize that some of those type of projects
Yes.
cause that can cause that.
Terraces have to be put back the way they were.
Yeah.
And this is part of the reclamation we're still in the process of. We actually looked at that, particularly at 4 yesterday, and realized that just cleaning out the culverts wasn't good enough. We had to redirect the water on there.
Okay.
and I think there were some access roads that didn't have pipes, but I think we went through and installed a lot of those that we
So,
identified.
just by sitting here with the 3 entities, we can get things done a lot quicker. So, I think if we can get you guys to meet on a formal basis as often as needs to be, it probably needs to be a set time, so you don't divert from them and say, well, we'll do it next week. If we can do this once a week or whatever this needs to be, and work on those lists, getting them together, and you all agree to do that, so.
If weather permitting, have you got a 90-day outlook or a 128-day outlook to be towards operating, all problems solved?
We're hoping for the end of October. That's our goal. To complete everything by the end of October. Like I said, we're very close on one side of the project. The other side of the project, as long as you have reclamation, whether terraces, with the collection systems and fixing around the turbines, as long as you have that, we're gonna have equipment on the road. So, our goal is to have that completed end of October.
as far as that, if I may ask, the last information I had was be done on October 25th. That's not necessarily verbal, it did come in email, it's written. But as far as I know, we haven't received a Gantt chart or any kind of a line chart as to where things are gonna be done, when they're gonna be doing, with what equipment and how many people. That's one of the things that I come from, I have the private industry work, and that's one thing that I think you guys, maybe have, I don't know, I drive out there a lot, I've seen a lot of equipment sitting around, and what really hurts the issue too is that everybody, I think everybody, including Marion County, wants to work with you, but when we see all the equipment sitting there and the constituents see this equipment sitting there and this work isn't getting done, that's very frustrating. And I guess maybe that's what we're looking for, and that's something that comes from these weekly meetings or whatever else it is. We need to discuss what the schedule's going to be, the manpower and stuff like that. As far as I know, talking with Tanner and Dave, the part of the process is to go back and rework these roads all the way from the west side to the east side to get them to what we agreed to. And as far as I know, none of that's been done either. So that I look at the fact is, and you're telling me that in 5 weeks, everything on that project is going to be done. My personal opinion is I find that hard to believe. But if it can be done, by all means. But I think that's what we need to talk about, or like we talked about these weekly meetings, this schedule has to be discussed. And you bring up the deal with the floods and everything else, we've had to deal with them too. It's unfortunate. We are way over budget on it too, but you know what, we still have to carry the safety. My impression, I think as far as the county goes, if we go in and start doing work on these roads, you're gonna come back and say, well, you've now accept responsibility and liability for that road. That's not what it's supposed to be. If we close the road for safety reasons, you're gonna say, your legal department, whatever the case is, well, now you've accepted those roads. That's not our intent by any means. We just want to get this stuff fixed because the constituents call the commissioners, who call me, and we have to say, well, we're supposed to stay off of those roads because they're wind turbine roads. Yeah. So, we're here to help, whatever the case may be, but we just got to figure out what that is. 9 on-site supervisors is something to me that, we need to have some continuity, if you want to say. And I obviously realize, I know I've been in the contracting side of things too, people change, but I just see that as a possible inherent problem too. So, we've met before, guys, face to face. I told you I wanted to work with you, I wanted to get things done. Not much has happened since that meeting. And that's kind of frustrating because, I've got Jesse out there, and when my blade men are calling us and calling me and say, hey, I need to fix this road, and we're saying, no, we can't do it, it's a wind turbine road. Those blade men know the people that are calling them, they have to deal with them face to face, and it's kind of an egg in the face when we have to say, well, we're not supposed to touch those. So I think that's what we're looking at, is to get past that point.
Well, there's been a lot done, and a lot of work has taken place. There's been a lot done, and I kind of disagree with that. And as far as 9 people, when this project started, we had 4 civil supervisors. So yes, you have different people talking during construction. And I know we've had 3 since then. So we put the guy here permanent. We want to fix, we want to finish up. Got it here permanent. You guys want to set up a meeting like every Wednesday out on site, we can do that. We can go over the list, we can look at the situation. We can provide a schedule. We can show you where we are on the project and how we're progressing and which part we're working. Guys, there's a lot of reclamation involved here besides just the roads. And yes, you'll see equipment sitting when they move equipment to other projects. We have a manpower list and we have a schedule. So if y'all want to meet every Wednesday, we can look at this situation and go from there.
Is that satisfactory with you, Tanner?
On
Bryce?
site.
Is that a possibility to work out?
Yep. And we have the meeting on site at the L&M building. Does that work for everybody?
Yeah.
We might as well be out there where the work's going on.
Okay, you guys set a time and do it.
So I want to ask then also, I myself personally feel as though I see Ms. Rice and Tanner and David, very cordial, trying to work with you, and like I said, we've done this about 4 times. Honestly, I feel as though the opposition side is very contentious and confrontational. What are those meetings out there gonna look like? Are you really gonna put forth effort to work with them? Because this has been the same stagnant point that we've had for a while. There's been a lot of confrontation and contention going on with Kirk and Michael from your people. And I want to know if that's going to kind of ease so that we can work through this.
And we're trying to cooperate. We want to cooperate and finish the project. We want good roads and good situation just as much as anybody else.
And abide by the contract.
Okay, everybody on the same page? Bryce?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Okay. Well, we very much appreciate everyone coming in this morning. Something we needed to get done, so we thank you. And, you know, we all want to be good neighbors. So.
Yes,
And I
sir,
know
we
you
gotta
do.
operate this plant for 20 years.
Yeah.
And we want to be part of the community.
Absolutely.
How about 40 years?
Well, I hope it goes 40 years.
Oh.
I'll be dead and gone then, but I hope it does.
Okay.
All right.
Did you have anything else you want to add, either one
No, I think we'll just get together here and schedule a time.
Okay.
and you'll keep us informed as to how well they're going?
Yes.
Good, thank you.
Because Bryce will report to us, so.
So will Kirk and Michael. Kirk and Michael is the one who reports to us also. Yes.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Now, Jeff and Steve, appreciate it. Thank you.
Very much.
Got a million things in there.
That way?
Actually, the last call.
Thanks, Tanner.
I gotta stand for this.
He's got too much. He's got too much.
Thank you, Tanner. You guys do an awesome job.
Meeting is-
Sorry.
Okay, everybody's moved around now. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the Expedition Wind Project discussion and contract negotiations. Pat Bellstring is with us. Do you have someone else you'd like to introduce?
Yes, this is Sean McMullen. Sean, why don't you maybe share your background? So my name is Sean McMullen. I'm the Vice President of Renewables, representing Aries, which is the ultimate owner of the Expedition Wind Project. So my background, I'm a civil engineer, civil and structural engineer. I'm a registered professional engineer in the state of Kansas and 17 other states across the United States.
Why don't you guys move up?
Sure.
Front row. Okay, you've been in discussion even just in the last few days with our county council, and so I'm going to defer to Brad at this point.
Yeah, just for, to catch everyone up, we had had a meeting in Wichita that was, I thought, very productive. It went for quite a while the other day, and as part of that, I had previously indicated that I would be inviting Pat or whatever representatives they wish to have, Mr. Sean, to come in today since we were having this meeting anyway. Knowing that we've had the kind of concerns that we had, like for road maintenance, it was probably good for them to hear some element of that so that there's some sense of how we attack some of those same things. Candidly, what we've been dealing with and what that meeting revolved around the other day were primary terms of what would ultimately be the forms of agreements similar to what we've been dealing with here for Diamond Vista. I said it was productive to the extent that I think we exchanged quite a bit of information. I explained a lot of the concerns that the county would have in a global sense, and thought it would be useful for them to hear what had gone on before, which is why I think they've been here the whole time. And then I thought Pat was coming prepared to probably discuss some general term kinds of things this morning. They are still in the process, especially after that last meeting, of drawing up draft agreements into a form that I think will hopefully be more consistent with what the commission has indicated they expect and would like to see in terms of terms. So it's not an intent to necessarily go through a line-by-line agreement at all. I think Pat was going to address some things first and foremost, and we'd see where we got to from there.
Okay. Pat?
So Pat's just gonna basically give us a presentation today, is what this is about, am I correct?
At least initially, and then I think certainly prepared to answer some questions from the board if necessary. The only caveat I have, I want this to stay as open as we possibly can, and I don't think they disagree with that. But there are some elements of this that they're still working through, and I think that would refer to proprietary interest, financial kinds of things that are specific to their organizational structure and how they go about funding things and how they develop their overall financial picture that they may well raise as an issue and say, well, if we're going to get into some of those things as a natural progression here, probably asked to do those in closed session, so be it. If it's proprietary in nature, that would be something that they could ask for. But initially, I was encouraging that we do as much of this in an open setting as we can.
So basically the contracts and so on, we're not gonna really get into the weeds of the contract?
No, that's not the intent today, I believe. Because I know from our discussion the other day that there are a number of significant changes and elements of that I'm fairly confident are going to change dramatically from even what has been contemplated at the outset by them.
Okay. Anything else from the commission before I turn it over to Pat? Okay, go ahead, Pat.
Thank you, Brad. I'm not going to suggest that I've got a long presentation for you today, but let me start the reason that Sean is here to observe what you've been through in your first wind project, I think, is to help educate us. And we can appreciate what you have gone through over the last 12 to 18 months. And we can appreciate how you've looked at that situation, how you've tried to deal with it, in their contract. And we've taken away a lot of good guidance and some principles that we can make sure. Obviously, communication is a big issue. And I guess what I can provide some assurance to you is that Aries is a big company. They are primarily investor, publicly held, and so they're very sensitive about their perception around the world. And from that standpoint, they like to take care of things. Hence, I think Sean's involvement early on. So we found that instructive. I'm not sure if you've got some principles maybe you want to feedback to us to suggest to make sure that, at the stage that we reach an agreement, we've got some of your ideas incorporated. We're happy to, take those specifically. I mean, the one I heard today, which I found interesting, is continuity. And, what you find in just about any industry is that there is change, people. And so I think one of the things we want to give some thought to and get back to at a later date is a process to assure continuity so that you know who you're dealing with. Some of the same people are always involved with the project. Secondly, communication. And I'm not sure who mentioned it up there, but I agree. And one of the things we talk to our staff about on a regular basis is, emails are great to get your message across, but you don't pick up the subtleties. And I walk around the office every now and then and tap people on the shoulder and say, why don't you pick up the phone, talk to that person, see what can happen. And then the third thing that you talked about today that I picked up is, we can talk about having meetings, and you might put something like that in a contract, but I think, and we want to give some thought, give you something that I think is consistent ultimately, but you got to specify what that meeting is and a requirement such that the right people are at the meeting, number one. Number two, you're talking about the right things. And if there's an expectation in terms of schedules and lists and those types of things, make sure that those are addressed in the contract so everybody's held accountable to those. So we want to give some thought to that and be responsive, I think, to what we heard today in those areas. I don't know if you've got other things. Maybe, Sean, you can just give a little bit of background about how many construction projects you've been involved in with management.
Sure. So, I don't know if this is gonna help me or hurt me, but, so the original projects, the Diamond Vista Expedition Wing, they all started out as Project Doyle. So I used to be a global director of construction for a company with 4 letters. I'm not gonna tell you what those 4 letters are because I'll get kicked out of this room. But so I started working on Project Doyle back in 2010. And I know all of the challenges, all the struggles that the previous company that was in here had. And I don't have all of the nuances of how construction happened. But I've done 28,000 megawatts worth of wind work across 7 different continents. So to say, and I think it was your point, we haven't had catastrophic storms. I've done several projects in the state of Kansas, and there's a reason that they made the Wizard of Oz, because Kansas weather is, it's terrible. I mean, this is a beautiful state, but you guys get 100-year storms every 3rd year. And to start looking at the way these projects evolve, and Diane, to your point, the exact way that you design the access, the way that you design all of those things are things I've seen over the last 28,000 megawatts. And based on that, you have to take more time. I mean, the first wind project that I ever built, it was an 11 by 17 aerial photograph with a bunch of lines on it. Those were the construction plans. But that was back in 1991. And that was acceptable. Well, we've evolved so much in this industry that we need to start designing these roads, and we have started designing these roads just like we would do a DOT project. The other part of my background is I used to design highways. I mean, that's what I did when I got out of school. I'll share a personal adage as well. So I was born in the state of Wisconsin. My parents owned 2 large construction companies where we built highways. So I went to school. My parents helped me pay for it. Came into my father's office the day I graduated, handed him my diploma, and said, Dad, I'm sick of working on a motor grader. I want to come in the office. I want to be an estimator. I want to be a project manager. And he fired me. He said, guess what? You got a degree, go get a real job. And I started doing, it's a great story.
Best decision of your life.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And from there, I started to work for a utility and grew and morphed into being where I'm at right now. But some of the things and some of the lessons learned off of the Doyle project and off the Diamond Vista project, we understand that, we hear you, and we've already taken the lessons learned from RES and from NL and have incorporated that into our designs. I mean, we've taken kind of a step back on some of the lessons learned and some of the things that the commission has pulled Pat and his group and have said, you know what, the first ones that go through, the settlers are the ones that take out the arrows, but we're going to be held to a higher standard. And we understand that, and we're going to be held to that higher standard. As far as the road use agreements and or the RMA, I guess as you guys have called them. So the road use agreements that we use is from the day that we sign that agreement and we start construction. That date is in there. And from that point, we take over the maintenance of those roads. We take over the ownership of those roads. And until we take and come to the commission or come to the road department, whoever it is, at that point, that snapshot in time is where we say, okay, we think we're done and we want to hand these over to you. And then there's a time frame in between those where, let's say it's June 1 of X year, that we have to be completed with all of that. From June 1 of that year, we come and say, hey, we believe that we've returned all of your roads to exactly what they were before we got here. And that starts that process. And then from there, it's 30, 60, 90 days when all of that work has to be completed. If it's not completed, then we start another process of, hey, you guys hire a contractor and we have to pay for it. I mean, that's how these RMAs should actually really be done. And that's how we've been doing them in projects we have in Texas, projects we have in Oklahoma, and a potential project in a different county in Kansas. So I think there's ways that we can structure these things so that our wind project isn't going to be a burden to your constituents and our
And just a final comment, consistent with Sean's comment, what you're gonna find with Aries, Aries, it's a big organization with a lot of key people making decisions from a long ways away. And the only way they can do that successfully is to make sure they're working with the right people. And they have a series of contractors that they have worked with, that they're very comfortable with. And it will likely be somebody that they've taken into projects on multiple occasions, left those projects, and everybody's been happy. And that really makes the most sense for them. Brad, I think we're happy to talk about some additional items, but as soon as we start talking about financial issues and those types of things, they're kind of proprietary, so
I understand.
Leave it up to you.
Yeah. I guess to field the questions, at least in the starting point, in terms of RMA issues or any of those kinds of related matters, since we've already started discussing those, and go from there.
I'd like to say, the words you just said, we sat in the same room and heard a year and a half ago with another company, not with you. But, so that's the reason why that maybe we feel that we're being shortchanged a little bit, is because they said it was their roads until they turned it back to us. And with all the other things, like Diane mentioned, the water, new construction, going through terrace, things like that. So we was told the same words you just said. And so that's why we're here today, I think. And that we just want to live up to that agreement. That's all we want.
And let me respond to that. And the one thing, and I wrote it down right away, there's got to be some continuity. And I agree. 12, 18 months, it may not be myself and it might not be Sean, but you better know the people that you're dealing with, and from their commitments to you early on, those need to be in place. And so that there's an added piece that you put in this component, which is a consistency in the process, and somebody on our side of the table responsible for the process, not responsible just for the dollars. Because admittedly, decisions in this industry, like all, are made based on a dollar and cent decision. But if there is a group, and NRS often fills that role on an ongoing basis, making sure that the process and the relationships are maintained. So,
If you don't mind, Randy, to your point, on the words that I just said, you said you heard them 18 months ago, and I didn't write them down.
Yeah.
It's what I've done for the last 29 years. And I think the way to kind of change that is adding the language of that 30, 60, 90, those monthly meetings, the monthly review, and putting some dates and putting some teeth into that RFA as well. And I know Marion's a rural area, and one of the biggest things that you guys have is the maintenance of your highways, maintenance of your roadways, and I'll tell you right now that the 70-year-old woman that chatters her teeth as she goes over a rut in a road because of the wind farm, she's going to call you every time she goes over. Or the 65-year-old man that does the same thing. Or the farmer that drives past the laydown yard that sees 20 pieces of equipment there and no work is being done. I understand that completely. And the reason that I'm here is not only to reassure you, but to make sure that we put that language into any agreement that we do enter into, so that we do take and we use the lessons that you've learned on the Diamond Vista project, and they don't happen on Expedition.
I think some of another problem is one that, as the project was going on, that we heard was, we're dealing with limestone here in Kansas. I don't know what some of the other states deal with, maybe sand and things like that, but the dust issue for our citizens we're going to have construction and it's going to be dusty, and we know that, but that's another issue that, like you just said, people get, I don't want my house blasted, but I know other people don't want their house blasted by it, so we got to work on something. We tried with with this last project to do that.
So, so with my experience, did a project in the state of California where one of the RMA agreements said that if any dusted a residential property, there's a $10,000 a day fine. And so, yes, so we've seen all kinds of different things. And watering limestone. I know. Watering limestone in the state of Kansas with the winds and sun that you have during the summer construction months, that's not the current. Please no one write this down, but there's a material called a surfactant. The term is called monkey snot because that's kind of what it looks like. But that's a better material to put down than just constantly watering. So there's all kinds of different things that can be done to take care of that. And there's other things that can be imposed to make sure that the contractor and the owner actually take care of that as well.
Well, I think that's one. The road maintenance agreement can do a lot for the project, do a lot for everybody to keep satisfaction.
Do you have other questions of us?
I do. I have a question. I wanted to just reiterate a little bit of what you said with your experience and so on, and your continuity comment and so on. I agree 100%. And I'm a little more, how do I say, detail oriented in a lot of these contracts. I worked at Fort Riley for a lot of years, right under the project managers, and they've changed all the time. With the government contracts, they come up for bids regularly. So we had changes all the time in our supervisors. However, the mission and the goal stayed the same. And the contracts, basically, other than a few little tweaks, the subcontractors never knew. Their mission went right just as smooth as can be, and there was no excuses and no exceptions. So when I have to deal with this, I get a little irritated because the contracts are the contracts. And when you sign them and you go in and when you pass it on to subcontractors, they should be fully aware of what's in those contracts and what's expected. So I was very disappointed when Enel purchased Diamond Vista and they come in like they don't know, oh my God, we don't know, we go the best we can. I just don't buy those type of excuses. So I don't mean to come off as the real witch, but I'm going to hold everybody's feet to the fire because been there, done that. I had to change my way of doing things because I had to abide by the contracts. And there's no wiggle room when you're dealing with government contracts. And so that's where I come off at. And so I just get really irritated about this type of stuff. And I do think communication is very important. But, you know, the problem that I see a lot of times is the only time you run into trouble, like we have, is when people want to try to get out of doing something they're supposed to do. Then you get in trouble. And then everybody gets upset. And like you said, the people see it up here, my constituents see it all the time. And not just the old lady with the rattling keys or the farmer that sees all the equipment, but just the average taxpayer trying to go to and from work. And he has to deal with these miserable roads. That's what I look at. And that to me is very important. And so I take all that into consideration.
And Diane, we hear you loud and so Aries itself, the Aries Corporation, I mean, we're a $125 billion a year corporation. And I can give you projects that we've done all over the United States where there isn't a complaint that we have.
You said you've been here since, what, 2010? You're familiar with the Doyles? Is that what I heard you say?
Yes.
Oh, okay, so then you're kind of familiar with, I mean, it's a little bit more of a unique, shall we say, project?
Yes.
Over the course of all those many years?
I have the experience in watching it evolve from.
What did you do? Were you part of building or part of the CUP process or something?
So I was the global director of construction.
Oh, I see. Okay.
The company that oversaw everything from. I don't want to say who I worked for because.
That was the four-letter word?
That was the four-letter word.
Okay.
And it doesn't begin with
Okay.
an F and end in a K or an S.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought I knew who it was. Guess not.
So, yes, so I have a lot of information, and I've shared a lot of the lessons learned, even back from 2010, when this was an infant, taking it to where we're headed to.
Okay.
And like I said, based on all the projects that I've worked on, you know, over the 7 continents that I've worked on, you learn something new on every project. If you don't, you're not doing it.
Well, wind is still evolving as far as, I mean, it's such an uncertainty, 10 years down the road. It's such an uncertainty. I mean, there's a lot to learn, a lot of changes.
What you do find as well in the industry is that there's, companies look at business differently. And there are companies, a lot of companies, that make, they have a history of doing things right and doing it well. And they find that that's cheaper in the long run.
Always.
Because you end up, first with satisfied customers and end up with repeat business, but secondarily, you're not trying to fill the hole that keeps getting dug behind you. And I think that's what you're going to see in this case. What we can't promise you is the same players staying in place over the next 10 years. Unfortunately, that's not the way the industry is. But there are things that we think we can do to give you that, not just communication, but the continuity. And we'll work on some things with you that to get us there.
Well, I will be honest, the project up north has been a nightmare for me. And like they said, the phone calls and stuff, it's just been a nightmare. And then to get people to believe you, and then to bring it to the forefront, and the battle, it's been a nightmare. So I would look forward to a change.
Well, and in fairness, on one side of the equation, and let me say that people are used to hearing me say this as we've talked about the expedition project. Generally, over a 2 to 3 year time period, the concern about having a wind farm in your immediate area dies down a little bit because it becomes part of the landscape. The worst thing you can do, though, is make the closing and finishing of the project painful, because that sticks in people's craw. And if you do the project right, you build it, you treat the landowners right, the people in the area right, then the project can stand on its own over time. And that's what we've seen. I come out of Minnesota with thousands of megawatts, dozens and dozens of projects. And you travel southwest Minnesota, you can't go 5 miles without seeing a wind farm. But I would encourage you, if you're ever driving through, stop and pick a random farmhouse up, walk up and knock on the door, and you'd be surprised at how comfortable people are being in that environment. But it takes time. We're quick to admit that.
So they're all in the southern part of Minnesota.
That's where most of the wind is. So yeah, the southern third of the state's got probably 90% of the wind farms.
The closer you get to Iowa, the more wind resource. If you cross the border into Iowa, you can't go 1 mile without seeing it.
Really?
Iowa has some of the best wind resources in the United States.
I know that.
Okay, well, thank you for your input to this point. I think that the development plan, Brad met with you in regards to some of the issues that we've looked at. And so I don't know, are you in a position to start talking about any of those? Or are you in research mode, or?
Now, you said development plan. We're not discussing those are just contracts, not the development plan yet. Okay, I just want to clarify that.
Yeah. Let me just say simply, because I think that's the best way to describe it today, because it's got to kind of prove itself out. We think we have identified questions and issues around what was proposed as far as our development plan, and logical conclusions and answers to those questions, which we want to work with the county over the next 60 days and have that evaluated. I think we're not talking about major changes. We're talking about a plan that will look probably pretty similar to what you've seen, but with the underlying justification that you're looking for, so that it makes sense.
Anything, Brad?
No, I think that it's fair to say that in talking with their legal counsel, the intent after our meeting the other day was to make a significant number of, to draft, and then as part of that draft, to make significant changes in certain areas. I'm going to say it that way, maybe that's an overstatement, but I don't think so. To put it into a format that then can be reviewed, but addresses a lot of the issues that have already been raised when we've talked about it. upfront, so it saves some time on that end of it, and we're not spending 120 days going back and forth, going, well, you know, we just thought about this. I took kind of a comprehensive global list to them. They were very interested in going through all of that. We did, and tried to clarify some of those pieces, and I got some initial input back that I thought was constructive. And then as I left there, my understanding was their legal counsel was going to go ahead and begin the process of revision of all of that and put it into a form that then you can review and look at. So that's kind of where we are today.
Okay. Anything else?
Just from a timing perspective, we'd like to be in a position to get you some agreements that you can look at seriously, and we understand eventually it needs to be brought forward to the public and have a review. But you know, that's on the front burner. We think that's one of the next things that we need to get accomplished with you. Time is getting a little short this fall, but our goal is to still get this project in the ground yet this fall. We got some other issues to deal with. We'll see how those things happen as well.
Anything else from the commission?
No, I'd just like to say that, you know, make steps forward here and see what, we gotta get things worked out and see what's all laid out on the table.
Okay. Thank you for being with us. That being the last item on the agenda, make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.